I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. The accused gunman in New York's subway mass shooting is appearing in court today to face federal terror charges. Police arrested Frank James in Lower Manhattan yesterday after a bystander spotted him. ABC News has also learned James himself called police and told them where he was. Investigators say the 62-year-old fired 33 shots into a crowded subway car during morning rush hour on Tuesday, sending nearly 30 people to the hospital. Janae Norman starts us off in New York's East Village.
My fellow New Yorkers, we got him. We got him.
Why those people? Why that station, Frank?
The man police say is responsible for that devastating attack on the New York City subway is waking up behind bars. 62-year-old Frank James taken into custody Wednesday by a swarm of NYPD officers in the city's East Village neighborhood. Now, ABC News has learned James himself called police, telling them where he was and describing what he was wearing, saying he would be in a McDonald's charging his phone when they arrive. With help from Good Samaritans, he was spotted just a few blocks away.
He was just walking like normal, like he didn't do anything before, like something. He's like a normal person.
Police arriving to that area, slowly surrounding the man suspected of shooting 10 people and injuring dozens more Tuesday morning, now facing terror-related charges. According to the federal complaint, the 62-year-old rented a U-Haul on April 11th at 2:30 p.m. in Philadelphia. Surveillance video capturing that van crossing the Verrazano Bridge into Brooklyn at approximately 4:11 Tuesday morning. 2 hours later, at 6:12 a.m., authorities say surveillance video captured James on a Brooklyn street corner wearing construction clothing, that orange vest described by witnesses, along with a backpack and rolling bag. He heads into a nearby subway station to board a Manhattan-bound N train. Then, at approximately 8:26 a.m., while on board the train, James allegedly releases a gas canister and opens fire. Subway riders spilling onto the platform, some performing life-saving measures. Many pile onto an R train just across the platform, including Kenneth Foote Smith, speaking exclusively to our Robin Roberts.
Once he told us to go on the R train, everyone immediately piled on, and I think it was about maybe 150 people on that platform. And my first thought when we got on that train, though, was, is the shooter still with us?
And apparently, he was. The complaint says James did enter the R train. Images capturing him leaving one stop later at 25th Street. The citywide manhunt lasting 29 hours until 1:42 p.m. Wednesday.
Oh my God, y'all, they caught him.
21-year-old Zach DeHaan was working in a local store checking surveillance cameras when he saw James and immediately flagged police.
I see the police walking from over there. I thought the police, this is the guy. Catch him, guys, catch him. And he catch him. Thank God we catch him.
And of course, there's a lot of attention now on subway safety, and the surveillance cameras that we've reported didn't work in some stations. Well, now we've learned that the MTA found out on Sunday that cameras in 3 subway stations weren't working properly, yet they weren't fixed by the time Tuesday morning's commute turned to chaos. The MTA saying that those cameras weren't sabotaged, they simply weren't working. Diane.
All right, Janae Norman, thank you. And let's bring in ABC News senior investigative reporter Aaron Katursky, ABC News chief investigative reporter Josh Margolin, and ABC News legal contributor Shauna Lloyd. Shauna, I want to start with you. What does it mean from a legal perspective for this case to go from a local crime to a federal terrorism case?
What we're looking at is a more severe crime that's occurred, and what they're trying to do is encompass everything that's happened and ensure that they get this higher charge. This act of terrorism is going to allow for him to be looking at a life sentence. It also allows for each of the individuals to be covered under this act because it's a general act of violence against a particular group of people designed to intimidate and strike fear in them.
Aaron, on the one hand, James called police to tell them where he was. On the other hand, he wasn't actually at that location once they arrived. So what do they make of that? Do they think he wanted to get caught, or was this some kind of a game?
It's too soon to know. We're told that James was not talkative other than to ask for a lawyer when he was taken into custody, and when he was taken out of the station house and transferred to federal custody, he did not make any statements as reporters shouted questions. But it seems almost like he wanted to turn himself in, didn't it? Because he'd been wandering around New York, Brooklyn, and Manhattan at least, and there he is in the middle of the day. His cell phone battery is dying, and he calls police to say, I've seen myself on social media and television. I think you're looking for me. And he was found a block from where he said he was. Bystanders noticed him. That picture of him had been all over their phones, on television, everywhere. And so they were finally able to point police in the right direction. And he was taken into custody without any incident at all.
And what do they know, if anything, about his movements before he was arrested?
They understand when he came into New York in that rented U-Haul van. They spotted it going over the Verrazano Bridge at about 4 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, so 4 hours or so before the attack. They know he got on the R train across the platform and blended in with commuters trying to escape the chaos. They know he made it into other parts of Brooklyn by getting on a city bus. But from there, they lose him, and security cameras don't appear to pick him up. They're using his Metro card, the fare card that you would swipe to get on the subways or buses, to see where else he may have gone and how he ended up entering Manhattan, where he was arrested.
And Josh, the NYPD now says that the use of a smoke bomb in this attack is especially concerning. Why is that so important?
It shows tradecraft. And this has been a problem or concern for the NYPD since the first minutes of the attack on Tuesday, Diane. They were immediately saying this attack showed coordination, showed planning. Now, coordination doesn't necessarily mean that there are others involved, and actually they're saying that they believe he acted alone, but they're concerned because this individual went ahead and planned it. He plotted it. He bought supplies. He carried the supplies. He plotted a getaway. He plotted a getup that he was going to wear to try to blend in. All of that suggests that this is not random, and that always makes investigators worried about something that he might have been planning additionally, or that other people are planning something similar.
Now, Shauna, there's been a lot of focus on the suspect's social media accounts. How might his posts impact his case?
His post may impact his case because it can show premeditation. It can show that he was planning, knew what he was doing. He was aware. I know that there's been some speculation of possible mental health issues. All of these are going to speak to state of mind that he was in coming up to this particular event, and it will be used in evidence coming in his case.
And Josh, some are also calling the social media posts a cry for help. So what kind of conversations is this attack sparking among leaders about increasing security, but also increasing services like mental health care?
Well, that's obviously what's going on right there. You know, there's a suggestion that the hate-filled nature of the posts indicates maybe terrorism or a hate crime. Other people are saying it just is, as you say, a cry for help. And maybe if this person had gotten help and had been diagnosed, maybe there was a way for him to have not suffered whatever it was that led him to have an episode where he wanted to act out this way.
And Aaron, the police are also raising concerns now about bad actors trying to exploit this attack in online messaging. What are they finding there?
They're finding that, as often happens after one of these attacks, the extremist groups try to take advantage of all stripes, domestic, foreign. Already, Diane, they've noticed that ISIS and al-Qaeda-linked groups have posted messages on their social media indicating praise for what Frank James has allegedly done.
But so far, no evidence that he was operating in support or supported by any larger terror organization.
Nothing like that at all. They still don't fully understand the motive, but it appeared from those social media posts like he had a number of different grievances that all mixed together with whatever psychiatric issues he may have had, and together that may have led him, according to police, to shoot up the subway, a place that he was familiar with.
All right, so Shauna, where does this case go from here?
Where we're headed from here is now they're going to submit this to a federal grand jury. They're going to seek the indictment. Once they have that, this will proceed to a criminal trial. And that's where the discovery process will begin. A lot more information will be exchanged between both sides. And later, probably a year or so, a little bit, further down the road, we'll start to see a criminal trial.
All right. Shauna Lloyd, Josh Margolin, Aaron Katursky, thank you all.
Thanks, Dan.
And Ukraine claims it badly damaged a Russian flagship in the Black Sea in what appears to be a major blow to the Russian military. This as President Biden announces an additional $800 million in military aid to Ukraine. Foreign correspondent James Longman is in Kyiv with the latest.
Humiliation for Vladimir Putin's forces. Ukraine saying they've hit the flagship of its Black Sea fleet, the Moskva, with 2 anti-ship cruise missiles. The Moskva was named for Russia's capital. And this morning, Moscow has admitted the cruiser has been abandoned. Although they make no mention of a strike, they've blamed it on an ammunition fire instead. The strike is a major psychological blow for Russia. A large and important vessel scuppered by a country Vladimir Putin thought he could occupy in a matter of days.
It is very significant. It is a big win for the Ukrainians. This is obviously going to cause an embarrassment to President Putin and the Russian Navy.
The bombardments on the east continue. Shocking new video from Kharkiv appearing to show what experts say are cluster bombs. Ukraine's second largest city has been under Russian shelling for weeks. Local officials say the latest attack has left at least 7 people dead and over 20 injured. As Russia readies its eastern ground assault, President Biden promising his Ukrainian counterpart more help, unveiling a new $800 million aid package to Ukraine. That package is set to include long-range artillery systems, armored personnel carriers, additional drones and helicopters. President Zelensky saying he is sincerely thankful for the support. And Russia is this morning setting new pretexts for attacks. Their defense ministry saying that they're seeing attempts of sabotage by Ukrainian forces in Russia. They're now threatening Ukraine's capital, saying if such activities continue, the Russian armed forces will conduct strikes on decision-making centers, including those in Kyiv.
It's still unclear what exactly has happened to the Moskva, but it does raise the possibility of further Russian strikes across this country, including here in the capital, Kyiv. Diane.
All right, James Longman in Kyiv, thank you. And the Pentagon says it cannot confirm whether the explosion on the Russian flagship was caused by a Ukrainian missile, but that it also can't be ruled out. Let's bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks for more on this. Mary Alice, what do we know about this ship and what this loss means for Russia's new offensive in eastern Ukraine?
Yeah, Dan, like you said, the Pentagon is clearly tracking this closely. The Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said, like you mentioned, that they haven't been able to confirm whether this was, in fact, an explosion caused by Ukrainian missiles, but they weren't ruling that out either. They said that their understanding is that the ship is still operating under its own power, not being towed, but is leaving the region, that it was about 60 miles off the coast of Odessa. I think that begs the question whether or not Russia will see a need to respond in a big way to this blow. But also it could be a serious morale boost to Ukrainian forces when there's such a public target like this struck. It can go a long way in boosting morale and giving a vote of confidence that Ukrainians are potentially getting an upper hand.
Now, the leaders of Finland and Sweden have now announced publicly that they're considering joining NATO. So what are the next steps there, and how are NATO members and Russia reacting to that?
Yeah, this is interesting. We've really seen NATO's popularity just skyrocket in the last few years, and especially in the last few months in those countries that sort of have long been skeptical, long been operating on their own. They do already have close relationships, trading and military relationships with the rest of NATO, but we're seeing a real surge in their local residents being interested in joining the alliance. Now, this would still need to be discussed and voted on in their parliaments, and then, of course, NATO as a body, as a member organization, would discuss this. But in a lot of ways, what's interesting here is it's a reminder that Vladimir Putin is getting exactly what he said he didn't want, which is a stronger, more unified NATO that is now increasingly popular in the region.
Meanwhile, Mary Alice, former President Trump aide Stephen Miller is testifying before the House committee investigating the January 6th assault on the Capitol. Now, the committee has accused him of spreading false information about the election. So what is he expected to tell them, and what's next in this investigation?
Yeah, we don't think we'll see him today. A lot of these have been done virtually. But you're right. In the letter sent along with the subpoena compelling him to testify, the chairman of the committee said that his team was responsible for preparing the remarks that President Trump gave on January 6th ahead of the insurrection. Like you said, they accused him of efforts to spread false information about the election and encouraging state legislatures to actively work to alter the results. They specifically point to Stephen Miller's own public comments where he seemed to gloat about a plan to appoint alternate electors in these states. So what we're really seeing here is this committee transitioning and zeroing in on something beyond the violence of that day. They were focused at the beginning so much on the assault of officers, the smashing of windows, the physical violence of that day. But in the second part of their investigation, they're really moving beyond and looking into whether or not there was a coordinated and criminal plan to overturn the election results, to deny President President Biden his win and who is responsible for that and how far and how high up that went.
All right, Mary Ellis Parks, we appreciate it as always. Thank you. Coming up, the encouraging new headline from Pfizer about how children ages 5 to 11 are responding to its COVID booster shot. More on that after the break. Welcome back to ABC News Live. At least one person has been killed in Arkansas from a falling tree after severe weather in the South and Midwest. In the past 3 days, there have been more than 500 damaging storm reports from Nebraska to Alabama. Elon Musk has offered to buy 100% of Twitter. The Tesla CEO said today that the social media giant needs to be transformed privately, just a week after he first announced a 9.2% stake in the company. Musk's offer values Twitter at about $43 billion. Abortion rights groups were in court today seeking to restore abortion services in Kentucky after the legislature overrode its governor's veto, effectively suspending legal abortion access and enacting a sweeping anti-abortion law. The bill bans abortions after 15 weeks, along with several other restrictions. Sherry Papini, the California mother who now admits to faking her own abduction, appeared briefly before a judge on Wednesday. Papini was arraigned on charges that she lied to federal officials. She now faces as many as 25 years in prison for the hoax. And today, Pfizer is announcing that children from 5 to 11 years old showed a strong immune response after receiving a booster shot in a clinical trial. The company plans to submit the data to the FDA and ask for authorization in the next few days. Meanwhile, the CDC announced it's extending the mask mandate on public transportation, including on airplanes, as daily travel breaks pandemic records. ABC News contributor Dr. Jay Bott joins me now for more on this. Dr. Bott, thanks for being here. What do you make of this announcement from Pfizer about its clinical trial for kids 5 to 11?
Diane, thanks so much for having me today. I think that this is good news. In a trial of 140 kids, there was a 6-fold increase in antibodies against the original coronavirus strain 1 month after the booster shot. But what's more important is that a third dose administered 6 months after the second shot also increased Omicron neutralizing antibodies by 36 times in a smaller subset. So I think this is just encouraging news that we need to continue to build on. As I know, we want to keep those kids 5 to 11 safe and ensure that we curb any spread of infection.
Now, we've been seeing an uptick in COVID cases across the country, not necessarily a rise in hospitalizations or deaths, but the CDC is now saying that they're going to extend the 2-week mask mandate on public transportation. What kind of a difference do you think that would make?
We know that COVID at this point, with rising cases, we want to curb infection so we don't see the lag in hospitalizations and deaths. And we know that masks provide a significant protective capability as a public health mitigation measure. And so this is going to be important to continue doing over the short term here while cases are going up. And I think individuals will be protected and ensure safety when we use public health mitigations like masks. But I would, on top of that, encourage getting boosters. 30% of the country has gotten boosters. We need to increase that rate. And those that haven't gotten the original vaccination should get that as well. So we have layered protection going in to any transportation situation.
And Pfizer says that it could finish working on an updated version of its COVID-19 vaccine that can better protect against Omicron by the fall. According to the CDC right now, 65.8% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated. So how much do you think a new version of the vaccine could help?
I think that there was a recent study that looked at 182,000 people 60 and over that came out in the New England Journal of Medicine yesterday that received the 4th dose and showed that the 4th vaccine dose significantly protects against coronavirus disease complications, including a 4-fold reduction in mortality compared to those who received the 3rd dose 4 months ago. I think that I would recommend individuals who haven't gotten vaccinated to get vaccinated. If you haven't gotten boosted, to get boosted. And then the additional vaccine will just provide more protection against severe disease. But it's important to get the basics done first.
All right, Dr. Bott, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
Our pleasure. Coming up, it is Black Maternal Health Week. When we come back, why many new moms are turning to midwives instead of traditional medicine when it comes to childbirth care. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It is Black Maternal Health Week, and believe it or not, the United States has the highest death rates for new moms among any industrialized nation. According to the CDC, a closer look at those numbers show the maternal death rate among Black women is 2.5 times higher than white women. Now the Department of Health and Human Services has announced $16 million will go toward addressing those disparities, as many women turn to midwives for childbirth care as opposed to relying on the traditional medical community. Janae Norman has that story.
These babies, just days old, were born in one of the world's wealthiest countries. But for their mom, it's one of the deadliest.
I continuously say that this is an SOS situation. We must save ourselves.
The United States has the highest death rates for new moms among industrialized nations. And according to the CDC, Black women in America are nearly 3 times more likely to die than white women in childbirth or from pregnancy-related complications, regardless of their education and income level.
We know that the consequences of racism, sexism, gender oppression are causing us to die within childbirth.
Experts say the reasons, though broad-ranging from disparities in healthcare and underlying chronic conditions, point back to structural racism and implicit bias. The pandemic prompting many women of all races to seek more holistic support. Enter the midwife, a trained health professional that provides care throughout pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, and beyond, assisting births at home, in birthing centers, and in hospitals. Nubia Earth Martin is one of countless midwives on the front lines, fighting to save the lives of women dying giving birth. Studies show that for low-risk pregnancies, midwife-led care is linked to fewer medical interventions and better birthing outcomes for both baby and mom, including decreased risk of needing a C-section or to be induced, and decreased infant mortality rates and risk of preterm birth. 32-year-old Nicole Amwako delivered her first child in the hospital, but has chosen a home birth with a midwife for her second.
Being with a midwife, especially the midwife team that I've chosen, one that is not only culturally competent, but is from my community, makes me feel safer, 100%. Your prenatals are much longer, and so you're able to share any questions that you have. And I think that the resources that you're able to get from a midwife are oftentimes really supportive and helpful during the duration of your pregnancy and birth.
But some expectant moms may face hurdles in seeking alternative care, like prior pregnancy complications, underlying medical conditions, or even restrictions from insurance coverage.
When you have somebody who maybe is healthy, having a low-risk pregnancy, wants to give birth with midwives in the comfort of their home, and then the insurance won't cover it, then they have to make a hard decision to enter into the medical industrial complex where they might not want to birth, and yes, in some situations may not survive.
And to be clear, midwifery is different than home births. Home births do come with their own risks that individuals must weigh. But working with a midwife will be inherently different than working with a doctor. And research overwhelmingly shows that working with midwives does lead to greater birthing outcomes and can save lives. Diane.
All right, Janae Norman, such an important story. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. I'm Diane Macedo. Stay with us as ABC News Live continues with news, context, and analysis.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.